Blessings this morning. Today marks the second week of the Advent season, the season of preparation. For this Advent season, we're following a worship design studio called Heaven and Nature Sing, looking at the 300 years of joy to the world. Our focus for this morning is on the joy that can be found through the giving and the receiving of love. Love can be experienced through words, through actions. Music is also another way that love can be experienced and expressed. Music has the ability to transform us. As we continue to celebrate 300 years of joy to the world, may we be reminded of the sheer joy and fun that can be found in this song. It calls for us to repeat the sounding joy of the good news of love. As Christians, we are called to do this through the way that we act, the way that we live, the words that we say. This morning, let us be reminded of our calling to joyfully lift up our voices and confidently proclaim the chorus of well-being for all of the world. May we also never forget that today and every day is a day that we can join in all of creation in offering praise and thanks for the gifts of love from God. Please pray with me. Loving God, it seems at times that we have forgotten the power that comes through the stories of our faith. We've heard the prophecies and the promises retold so many times. And likewise, we've heard the call to prepare ourselves for your coming repeated over and over. And in their familiarity, we forget the power that can be found in them. Rather than focusing on these messages of life and love, we focus on presence under the tree and preparing for parties. We ask that you bring us back to the sense of awe, back to the sense of wonder, to the sense of excitement and anticipation. Help us prepare our hearts, our souls, and our minds for the coming of the Messiah, now and always. Amen. Both of our scriptures this morning remind us of the radical and unexpected ways that God's love shows up in this world. Isaiah 11 begins with the claim of a new life. The prophet states that a shoot shall come out from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots. Hear those words, a shoot shall rise out of a stump. New life will come out of what is perceived to be dead. The stump of a tree is simply the remnants of what once was, of a tree that once stood tall and proud, but now is short and often forgotten. Yet this stump, this forgotten thing, is now where new life shall rise out. The prophet reminds us that where there is death, there is rebirth, there is resurrection. Have you ever noticed that a tree stump, weeks, months, or even years later, will have little green sprouts that spring out of the top, sometimes out of the side, but come right out of that? What's fascinating to me about this is that while the tree may appear to the world to be dead, it still has a strong root system underneath that continues to give nutrients and continues to allow this stump to grow. But now, just in different ways. These stumps of trees are still rooted deep in the ground and are seemingly unaffected by the external world. And while these new sprouts are fragile, they are still filled with the sap of purpose to reach for the sky if they could. The prophet Job, who found himself down and out, marveled at the hope and new life that could come out of the stump of a tree. He states that if a tree, is cut down, it will sprout again and grow new branches. Though its roots have grown old in the earth, and its stump decays, at the scent of water it will bud and sprout again like a new seedling. While Job saw this in the tree stump, he struggled to find it in himself. I imagine that at times, some of us forget to see that in our own lives, just like Job. However, each of us are trees planted by the life-giving water of the Spirit. What happens above the ground is seasonal. The new buds of spring, the fruits of the summer, the fallen leaves of the fall, and the dormancy of the winter. But what happens below is what really matters. The roots of our faith remain alive and active even when we don't feel it or sense it or see it. Indeed, storms will strike. Drought will come. People will hurt us and circumstances will change. But our root system remains consistent, remains strong, and out of that can come new life. This new life that the prophet Isaiah speaks about will bring about greatness, will bring about righteousness, will bring about a new way of living and a new way of being in this world. This small little shoot will change the course of history and transform lives for generations. The prophet Isaiah chose a fitting analogy for the prophecy of the Messiah, of the birth of Jesus. What started out seemingly so humble was actually miraculous. Jesus came into the world as just a tiny little baby, but he was so much more. He was God in human form. Mary was just an ordinary young girl, but she was going to be the mother of the one who would save the world. There were ordinary shepherds, run-of-the-mill kings, and common animals, all who were there to witness and honor something that was truly spectacular. They were all present to see God's love come into this world in the form of a small, seemingly ordinary little baby. But a baby who would grow into a man, and a man who would change the world. Many, many years after the prophet Isaiah, as well as many years after the birth of Jesus, is where we find ourselves in our gospel reading today from the book of Matthew. Here we find ourselves in the presence of John the Baptist. John the Baptist, like the prophet Isaiah, helped prepare the way for Jesus and his ministry. He entered the scene with a powerful message. God is about to do a new thing, and we must prepare ourselves. Whenever I read the Gospel of Matthew, especially this section about John, I find myself humming the song, Prepare Ye the Way of the Lord, from the musical Godspell. While the musical itself is from the 70s, I had the privilege of participating in it in my church in high school. For those of you not familiar with the song, I will sing a little bit for you today. Prepare ye the way of the Lord. 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 As is very apparent, the lyrics are not complicated. Repetitious, if you will. But that's the value in that song. In the musical, it starts out slow, with just John the Baptist, all by himself, singing that song. And as the song progresses, the speed increases. The volume of people involved increases. Then we see John start to baptize all these people who are coming to him. And it just becomes this, depending on which version you see, this lively experience, because They're all so excited, and they're preparing, and they're joining in song and in the story that is coming. And at the end of the song, we hear John remind them that he is only baptizing them with water, and the one who comes after will baptize them with the Spirit. In this musical that has been seen all over this world, we get that message from John the Baptist that we heard today as well. And I apologize if that song will now be in your head all week, but it's been in my head a long time. So when those religious leaders, as we heard, sought out baptism, John challenged them in rather colorful language, my favorite being, "You brood of vipers." He told them they had some work to do, and they needed to demonstrate their faith in some specific, concrete ways. He reminded them that they couldn't rely on their heritage, their religiosity, their piety. True repentance and faith required for them to turn away from what they've been doing, required them to do a little work on their own. So when we ourselves turn away from what distracts us from God, that's when we're able to truly prepare our hearts, prepare our souls, and prepare our minds for Jesus, as well as prepare ourselves for what God has already prepared for each and every one of us. John the Baptist was preparing the way for the loving joy of Jesus to fill the hearts and the lives of the people that were gathered around him that day, and for us still today. He knew that joy and love could be found in the one who was yet to come. And he knew his role in preparing the way for all the people, even amidst a bit of some tough love that he had to offer. God was at work through John then, and God is at work in our lives still today. And for that, I am truly grateful. This week, as we continue to prepare our hearts and souls and minds to celebrate the birth of Jesus, I encourage us all to reflect on the gift of love we each receive through Jesus. Are there people in your family or in your community who are in need of this gift of love in their lives? How can you share it? How can you offer it to them? Maybe it's simply sending a kind note, making a call, or checking in on someone. Or maybe it involves something more like telling your story or listening to theirs. Maybe it involves supporting Leaf through purchasing a gift for the giving tree or bringing food for the big giveaway. Whatever it may be, I encourage you to find ways this week to experience and to share the love of Christ with others, as well as with yourself. And in all that we do, may we remember that God's love is never ending, and there is enough of it for everybody. Amen.